In a natural landscape in the UK, traditionally the land would be covered by woodland or grassland. But in farming, we'll plough up and cultivate fields. And when you do that, you get hugely more soil eroded. That's kind of the real problem. You want to manage your land during farming in a way that reduces those excess sediment losses and reduces the pollution in the river. Most sediment, it's generally accepted, comes from the erosion of agricultural fields and farmland. But if you look at kind of published data sets of soil erosion rates and the amount of sediment found in rivers, you find the numbers don't quite add up. The amount of soil being eroded from farmland is much too low to account for the amount of sediment that you're finding in the river. We've just met a group of citizen scientists to train them in the tracing of sediment sources in river catchments. And that's using a kind of new method that we've developed at Rothamsted, which uses hydrogen peroxide to treat the sediment so we can better differentiate between its sources and more precisely refine where it's come from. There's a lot of investments going into catchment management in the UK, and if in many of those rivers the sediment getting into it isn't coming from farmland, a lot of the money being spent and a lot of the effort could be wasted. So we're wanting to investigate a range of different river types across the country to kind of determine in which types of rivers are we finding excess sediment from farmland and which ones we aren't. And the group today are kind of contributing to that research. So this is going to be like the 18th river we've studied. And really there's been very little work done in the east of England and the southeast, almost no research done. So this is going to be one of the first rivers studied in this part of the country, and it's especially interesting because such a high proportion of the land use here is this arable land and land use cultivated for growing crops. The volunteers will be going out into this river, and we've given them some sediment traps which they'll be placing into the stream, and that will collect a sample of the sediment over kind of the next month or two, which has been transported during that time. They'll take that sediment, take it out of the river and put it into bottles for us to analyse. And what they'll then be doing is going out into the river catchment and collecting samples of various sources which can contribute to the sediment in the river. So it could be cultivated fields, grassland, the riverbanks. And once they've collected about 100 or so of those samples, we'll take them all back to the lab and then we'll analyse them, in particular for their colour. And by comparing the colour of the sediment samples they've collected in the river to those of the potential sources within the catchment, we can work out what the dominant source of that sediment might be. We really want to understand the variability in sediment sources around the UK. So by having volunteers undertake this work for us, it means we can sample and study a hugely greater number of catchments than we would be able to do with just ourselves.